All right, here we go. OverDrive off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker, and up on TSN for Bryan Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan. We have a big one cooking this afternoon. A big one this afternoon, including a big announcement later this hour that some people online are still trying to figure out what it could be.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, some people are. There's a lot of different guesses as to what we might be announcing later, but we're excited. And
we're going on a southern swing?
Yeah.
That would be great. We're heading down to the Hero Challenge to catch Tiger over the weekend.
Dude, think about it next year. The Hero Challenge, the setup we had at the Canadian Open, we're behind the 18th green in the Bahamas.
Yeah, that sounds like it would be a pretty good idea. I'm with you on that one. I saw FanDuel's got, there's only 20 players in this tournament. FanDuel's got them the worst odds to win the tournament, which I think is appropriate. Yet it's a 20-player tournament, but it's the best players. It's not.
Dude, Hazy, the comebacks are getting worse as far as the footage. They are showing this guy on the putting green, every single shot on the range. I think their clock is ticking where it's there's not many of these left.
Yeah.
And we are going to milk this. They were talking today. I saw Rich Lerner doing an interview saying an unbelievable app idea would be to have a camera in Tiger's backyard range to just watch him hit balls. I'm like, are you insane?
That would be actually great.
Guaranteed subscribers. Honestly, would you
Massive.
How much would you pay per month to just
No,
sign up
Noodles.
to an
The
app?
question is, how much would J-Mac pay, our boss?
There's a lot of people, though, dude.
$5,000.
There's a lot of Tiger super fans, and there's also a lot of people.
The question was, how much would you pay for the app if it was you watch him go through the bag on a daily basis, or whenever he's going to do it, maybe he would notify the app, and then there would be maybe a tip involved. How much do you think people would pay, a.k.a. J-Mac, for that app? You think he'd pay $100 a month?
Yes.
He'd pay a fortune. And the thing is, the only app I would have paid for was Tiger back in his off the field days.
That's what I was going to get to, Noodles. If it was just an open camera on the house all day, people would be like, what's this cat up to?
Yeah,
Like
$1,000
a Tiger
a month.
body cam?
Yeah, exactly. Uh-oh, he left the drapes open. What's going on in there, Tiger? But that would do big business. It would do massive business. And I think once he retires, that is probably the next stage for him. He'll just start doing tutorials around his house, and he'll be playing the holes around his house. And there's always going to be money that will be made that's attached to Tiger Woods. And he'll be back teeing it tomorrow, and that's going to be exciting. And we're actually going to catch up with Steve Sands later this afternoon. Sandsy is down there for the Golf Channel. I think he's calling it on NBC and the Golf Channel over the weekend. So we'll catch up with Steve in a couple of hours. We got James Duthie coming up later this hour. Duthie was on the panel last night. That was something, that Leaf game last night. I'm watching the first period, and all I can think of is we just spent 3 hours talking about how this team better have some life. They better show up ready to fight. They better show up ready to punch Florida in the mouth. And it was the complete opposite. It was a minor miracle. It was 1-0 after the first period.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And Florida just came in because they are a serious team right now, right? We keep throwing that term around, but I am so impressed with the way they operate. Forget about how you feel about their whole roster, the whole cap situation. Just the moxie and the identity that Florida currently has.
Let
impressive.
me ask you this, Hazy, so the viewers can kind of understand where I'm going with this. What do you appreciate about what Florida brings most shifts and most nights? What is it about that you appreciate?
Intensity, physicality.
Jam.
Yeah.
Jam.
Being unpredictable, right? The way that they're built. Yes, they've got a Barkov who's quiet. Verhaeghe's a bit quiet. Reinhardt a bit quiet. But then after that, it's loose cannon. That guy will take your head off. That guy can score 40 but also kill you. They've got a real mixture. They have gentlemen on that team, and then they have junkyard dogs on that team.
And that's what I don't like. I was happy with the Maple Leafs that they stayed in the fight. And Paul Maurice, who is the coach of the Panthers, who everyone knows, that's a term that he would always use. You have to at least stay in the fight. And the Maple Leafs, for the most part, did that. Now, their goaltender bailed them out. He made some big saves. But there was a stretch, halfway through the first period leading into the second, where it's individual battles, it's like they were just lost, and it led to all these Florida chances, and it was just like I can't figure out how the Maple Leaf guys have they tortured themselves in the past with playoff losses, and they did win a round, but they lost in the second round. How they just didn't flip the switch and meet together, not Shanny, not Dubas, not Tree, not the coach, and say, we totally have to change how we approach this. And it's like, we've got to get to like a caveman mentality where it's like simple plays, simple battles, and like our skill will take on after that. Like I don't understand that. They still want that like that freewheeling game, and I don't understand it. And maybe Edmonton is somewhat in the same boat where it's like it just doesn't work as much as you want to do it, and as much as it might look good. And the skills coaches, and I like watching it. It's cool. I like breaking down William Nylander end to end and this and that. But as far as like team success, it just doesn't work. So I don't understand how they could think anything differently of that scenario.
I started the show yesterday trying to paint a picture and ask you guys, didn't that game favor the Leafs? Where, they had been in one the night before, and did they get up yesterday morning going, do I want to do this again? Do I want to, or is it going to be a skilled game? Is it going to be, hey, you don't touch me, I don't touch you? And I thought it just favored the Leafs. But you're right, Brian. Like they came from the drop of the puck. It was the Panthers that dictated the pace. It was them that were physical. It was them that kind of dragged each other into a war that night. And I give the Leafs credit. They stuck with it. The goaltender gave them an opportunity. Sometimes, the goalie's part of the team. He's allowed to give you that life there. They got an unsuspecting character who scored a goal, which was good, and Noah Gregor. Like there was some
don't
positives.
You think for the Florida Panthers that they have an understanding that if they have enough skill there, there's enough talent there on all areas of the ice, but if they just go out there and work their bags off, each and every one of them, they're going to have a chance to win. And it's like there's a maturity in their locker room where it's like, we got a chance to win every night, but we got to do this. And for the most part, they do it. They're going to have ups and downs. I don't think they're an elite class right now where they can coast through a stretch. Like, they got to bring that every night for their and their team's going to have a damn good chance to win. But I just want the Leafs to look at that and say, why don't we just do that?
It's got to be driven by their best players. So that's the thing. Like, it blends throughout that Florida lineup. The same thing with Boston forever, right? Like, Barkov is Bergeron, Bergeron is Barkov, but Marchand is Tkachuk, right? Like, it's you need to have a blend of skill, of intensity, of loose cannons, and of guys who, if it's going to be sleepy or if it's a tough night, they're not going to accept it. They're not just going to dump and change. They're going to dump and chase, and they're going to cause havoc. And that's what just isn't here with the Leafs in terms of their best players. Like, I thought John Tavares was terrible last night. Like, that's the captain of the team. It's a big game. I thought he was really sleepy. I thought the first period Matthews was awful. It was one of those nights. Now, to their credit, they regrouped, and I thought they were better in the second, better in the third, like, for sure. And they battled, and that's a sign of a team that has enough talent, has enough veteran presence where, again, you look at where they are, through a certain amount of games, and they're, 11-6-3. Like, that's, so for you, a lot of, like, kind of pessimism hanging around this team, yet they're in a position where they're still in a playoff spot, they can still come alive, and they can still move forward. But the idea that, they're going to take on some different identity, I just don't think it's ever going to happen because they still have the same players. Like, they still have the same star players that have the same demeanor. They're going to go out there and play the way they're going to play. Like, I look at Marner last night. I give him a lot of credit. Like, there's a lot of guys in the league that take a puck off the face and they pull the shoot. Like, he put a cage on.
They're not coming back.
And he went out, and I thought he was aggressive and battled. Like, I thought he got more and more physical and aggressive and in the play as the game went on. And they still got the win, and Wall played great. It just, you look at Florida, you look at Boston, you look at Vegas. I think L.A. did that when they came in here. They've got a strong collection of depth and size and skill and some bite and some unpredictability. And, the Leafs have a lot of those qualities, but they don't seem to have all of them. And I think it's on the players to ultimately prove that they can find them themselves.
Well, and I think the elephant in the room too is there's a brighter light being shined on it now is the defensive core. Now with the Gio injury, now like something's going to have to give back there. And, we've seen it throughout the league. Injuries, teams that have, struggling situations. No general manager just is putting up their hand and say, hey, we're going to help you out here. Ask Edmonton. Ask some of these teams that were at the bottom that need certain players, and they're probably asking for a king's ransom. But I think the Leafs have to do something sooner than later based on just the health of their group on the back end.
Yeah, three of their top 6 on opening night are no longer here. Klingberg's not coming back. Liljegren's got a high ankle sprain. I don't know when he's coming back, but he's not even skating. And Giordano, there's not a lot of info out on him, but it's an upper body injury. And when Keefe says after the game he's going to miss time, he's going to miss some time. And he's 40, right? And I'm not saying that to be disparaging, but injuries at that age can take a little longer, right? It can take a little bit more out of you. And, Giordano, I think in a perfect scenario is on your third pairing. Liljegren's on your third pairing. Okay, you're missing pieces here, right? Like Lagesson, I assume will go in. Benoit, I think Timmins has been really shaky, and to be fair to him, he's missed the whole year. He's missed a lot of time.
Benoit, the big Frenchman back there.
Yeah, Simon is doing his thing. And again, I thought Lagesson actually filled in pretty well. But at some point, that's going to get to you, right?
I think you're looking at big picture. Yeah, these guys that they can play. They can play in the league. It's not. I'm looking at big picture,
yes.
And going where are you going with this? Eventually, something has to give. Where you do add to the group of not a bunch of 6 and 7s. You need somebody that can be significant, that can play in the 2, 3, 4 range, that can replace Klingberg. Because that's where Klingberg was slotted to play. We'll call it 4. Okay? So that, what you're doing is you're asking guys to punch above their weight. They can do it on short-term spurts, but I don't think they're going to be able to do it in long-term spurts. So I think this is where Tree has to be really proactive, and I'm sure that he is. He's a manager that's got a pulse for the league, but you're leaking oil on the back end.
Yeah, no, and you're right. Any move you're going to make now, if you're going to give up assets to get him, it doesn't matter if it's end of November or March 8th on the trade deadline. These are moves that you're making likely for the playoffs, right? So they're yes, you can claim a guy off waivers or get some guy in the minors or plug someone in for a few games. But if Klingberg's done for the year, then you got 60 games where you got to fill that role. And if Gio's out for a while, if Liljegren's out for a month and a half, to say nothing of maybe other injuries that could pop up, I think you're looking for at least one guy that you legitimately bring in knowing, even if everyone was healthy, he'd be playing. He's a legitimate player. So all eyes are going to be on Treliving to see what he does there. But, the Leafs, they got Seattle here tomorrow. They got Boston in town on Saturday. I thought Joseph Wall was great last night. He was
unreal.
He was unreal. He's got to go Thursday. And if he plays well Thursday, I play him again on Saturday. This is the play. You play ride the hot hand.
It's getting to the point where it's there's not there is a lot of runway, but there isn't. Where it's okay, you weren't that good. We're going to go to the other guy. They need some chunks here of solid goaltending where it's it's your net for 2 weeks, unless there's a back-to-back or something. They need to start stringing together some chunks where they're building momentum off of goaltending / wins. Mm-hmm. And it's almost December now. It's time to get cooking on all levels.
Yeah. And that was big. Now, the instant replay or the review process in a shootout.
Where are you guys at with that?
First of all, what are we calling it?
The double tap.
The double tap. Tap-a-roo. Yeah, it's absurd that they're reviewing. That is exactly what I have been against my whole career when it comes to the review process, where you have a natural emotion. The game's over. Panthers are going crazy. People are storming out of there. Union Station's filling up. The Gardner's packed. Now, review process, a double tap, and we're going to bring everyone back. And obviously it benefited the Leafs greatly, but I find it so goofy. I find it even goofier that they review a high stick if it's a 4-minute high stick.
No, but what would you want? Do you just look at that, Hayes, and say, that looks like a natural hockey goal, so it's a goal?
Yes, yeah. It did look – it was a natural hockey goal. I don't think Rodrigues was thinking I'm going to push in the I think his stick
I
was
know,
there
but
and it hit it.
it's the idea of what if a guy comes in and rips one off the goalie's pad, it comes right back to him in the slot, and then he rips home the rebound.
Obviously, if it's that egregious,
I
the
know,
ref
but
will
they're
see
saying
it.
that's the same thing. Like,
It's not, though. It's not. And the ref
You're
would
right.
see that and be like, hey, dude, obviously we know that was a massive rebound. The ref didn't even – it was so quick and so inconsequential. The ref couldn't even see it in real time. So they had to go to the
I was
review process.
getting ready for the post-game hit. I was like, okay, it's a loss. They played pretty good. And then it was like people coming back into the building.
Wild scene last night.
It was one motion, but I agree. By the letter of the law, that is technically a rebound, but it is a double. All I try and say to people, because I don't have skin in the game, let's say that happened the other way. Matthew Tkachuk comes down and, does that, Mitch Marner does that, and it's taken away, and Matthew Tkachuk scores. What are we talking about today, or what is Leaf Nation talking about?
It's still stupid and
it's
absurd.
ridiculous.
I'm not changing my opinion, but obviously fans are going to flip one way or the other. I find it quite rich that the Panthers.
I think all three of us. I think the whole Leafs Nation would be, we got job last night. Let's not kid ourselves.
And I'm sure the Panther fans are thinking the same thing, and the Panther players and all that.
Right.
And I find it quite rich, though, that I guess the players were heard yelling, only in Toronto would that happen. As if they forget Game 5, Morgan Rielly, that was blatantly over the line, and they called it no goal. So Game 5 of the second round, it goes Florida's way, or Game 20 of the regular season in a shootout, and they think there's some conspiracy.
That's a great point.
Like the league. This team hasn't won a Stanley Cup since 1967, but the league is doing everything they can to help them.
Handing them favors.
Like it's absurd.
It just, like, that's what I remove myself is the emotion of it. I understand the letter of the law is that's a rebound, but man, that was a lean one.
Really
like that
lean.
was. But hey, you know what? You take it. We are dissecting a win.
Yeah,
but,
not the Leafs' fault. The Leafs, and again, I thought from the second, third on, the Leafs battled, and it was a pretty even game back and forth. And Noah Gregor scores the goal and then scores the shootout winner, basically the same shot.
Yeah, solid goaltending. They had a big 4-minute kill.
Yeah.
They had Nylander with some great chances. Could have easily potted some goals.
It's funny how Nylander it's quieted now that he's had no points in 3 games. All of a sudden, he's not worth 13-5.
I know how this plays out for this guy. He has got to start going to the front of the net like Holmstrom in Detroit, because you got to get one to get back on the positive track that's ugly. It's almost like the hockey gods and the momentum are saying, you've done your pretty stuff, and who knows, in saying that, he could go out tomorrow night and rip 3 goals home end to end. But sometimes it's like, if I wait out in the slot, it's not going to come to me. He's just got to try to find a way to smash in an ugly one. And then it's like everything will start flowing again.
Well, I mean, are you guys going to focus on the change of the players too, right? Like who he's playing with, all of that?
Well, I didn't. Again, I thought the first period that line was getting caved, like it was not good. And then Willie, he hits a post, he hits a crossbar, like he's still around it. I thought he was like the rest of the team. As the game went on, I thought he got better. Mm-hmm. But I find it more humorous that when everything was going in for him, it was $13 million. This guy, he might get McDavid money, and now he goes 3 games without a point, and no one's
market reset.
Yeah, no one's talking about what's going to happen with this guy.
I just, he's such a polarizing guy. That first goal, I could just see Twitter lighting up. It's like, there he is getting pushed off the puck, second to pucks, blah. But the guy has played really well. He's been
a
the most
stud all year.
Consistent player. Like sometimes you're allowed a poor play, you're allowed a missed chance here or there. I still haven't changed where I believe he should fall financially. But yes, it isn't a market correction because I don't believe he should have been at whatever 12 or whatever people were yelling and screaming about. Mm-hmm. But he's a good player. And yeah, you're right. He's going to have to, for it to go, if he's hit the ditch here a little bit from finding the score sheet, he's going to have to get maybe a moldy one here or there to get himself back on track.
That's wise. Like that would it doesn't matter how, it's how many, right? Just get him in, get back rolling. He's still playing with great players, and he's going to be on PP1. He's had a phenomenal year. Like I'm not taking anything away from William Nylander, just how quiet it is all of a sudden after a few games. And listen, their best players, they're going to have to drive things. You look what's happening in Edmonton the last few games. where all of a sudden McDavid's got 12 points in 3 games, 3 wins.
I'm telling you.
You know, Stuart Skinner did everything he could to throw that away last night. But they got 3 wins in 3 games, and McDavid's got 12 points. And, you know, the equivalent of that in this city, in this town, in this team is Auston Matthews. And I didn't like his game much last night. And I haven't liked it a lot for a couple of weeks. And, you know, they're not in the same spot Edmonton was. Edmonton was rock bottom, desperate. Right. And you looked at that team. They needed better defensive player, better goaltending. They changed the coach. But a lot of the conversation was driven around that 97 guy might have to just put them on their back and say, screw it. And that's what he's effectively done for 3 games. And I'd like to see that from Matthews, if not tomorrow night when Boston's here on Saturday night. He needs to get back into a position where he has a night or multiple games where it's like, that guy is rocking again. Like, because he started the year that way. You know, back-to-back hat tricks, 3 hat tricks in the first, 7, 8 games, 10 games.
Yeah.
And
it's just being on
it's
it
quiet
and around
right now.
it. Yeah, and it's just like it's like going up and down through the neutral zone. And the only thing I really liked about his game last night was when he rocked that guy against the boards, where it's like, I don't want you to do that every shift. You don't have to. I'd like to. But once in a while, just steamroll a guy and go get the puck and jam it into the net.
Yeah. Be a dominant force. You are one. Like, that's
you're
who you are.
6'4", 225 pounds or whatever he is. Go out there and just play like a beast and run people over and get the puck. And I know I'm obsessed with Eric Lindros, and I don't want him to be Eric Lindros. He's not that. But if you're big and strong like that, man, it's such a weapon. And it's such a weapon to have a player like that on your team. Notice how everyone is saying, the Oilers, they look pretty good right now. 97 looks really good right now. And it's amazing how one guy, it's like they reflect on the whole team. It's like, oh, yeah, they're back. Oilers, McDavid's back.
Everything has to filter.
Star-driven league, though. It's a star-driven league. The guys who get paid the most have to produce the most.
But Noodles, it's like if Auston Matthews went out there and he was on the forecheck and he steamrolled people and he scored a couple goals on the cycle, and it after the presser would be, the cycle game was really strong for the. That's just what happens. It's like one guy kind of leads the charge for all layers of the game.
Everything filters down.
Yes.
Right? It's a pyramid scheme. And the guy at the top has got to play his best, and then the guys below, and you just filter all the way down. And, that's, again, I think the glass half full with the Leafs is, A, they won last night, B, they're 11-6-3, and there's more there. Like, I have no doubt they will play better, and collectively they are going to iron some things out.
They've got way better.
They do.
That's a positive.
That's a good sign.
Better.
It's a really good sign. Like, because you could be 5-12-3 and be like, okay, maybe you do get better, but you could just be out of it. They are not. Like, they have more than just stayed afloat, and they have better game in them. They have more in the engine, and I believe they'll find it at some point.
What is the stat? They only have 5 regulation wins. Is that correct?
It's starting to drive me crazy, the regulation win comment, because there's no context to that. I got into this with Glenn and Gino. We were in the newsroom yelling at people. The 3 of us are yelling.
I don't understand how you want to get in. Like, you do that for a living. Why do you just walk around and start?
Yeah, you do. Hot take Hayes just walks around TSN yelling at people.
I owe an apology to the newsroom. People are trying to get work done over there, and I'm yelling about context. And Gino's yelling, and Glenn's getting in there because Glenn's all bent out of shape because I've been chirping the Capitals all year. And then, he mentioned how San Jose's got regulation wins and the Capitals have regulation wins. And I came over the top saying Washington just lost to San Jose. But here's my issue with the lack of context that comes with that.
Okay.
Is no one knows who you played, who you beat, how you beat them, who you lost to in reg. In other words, it's a bold number early in the season that might speak to a lack of killer instinct. I'll grant you that. Maybe a lack of confidence or consistency at times. No question. I'm not trying to paint it as a positive. It's not. But what I'm saying is, if you're a team, T-Max, take the Leafs out of this, and you beat Vegas on the road on a back-to-back in overtime, or you beat San Jose at home with rest and regulation, which one's more impressive? Obviously, Vegas in overtime. So, there's teams out there with a bunch of regulation wins. They beat San Jose, Anaheim. They beat garbage teams. It's like, who cares? It's being thrown out as this indictment. Wow, regulation wins, and there's no depth to it. There's no there's no
You're
context.
just saying put the 2 points in the bank and shut up about
at this
everything
point,
else. It's nonsense.
It's too early in the season. I get you'd prefer to win in regulation. Of course you have. But there's some games where they're tight games, they're tight checking. You play good teams. You play Florida
where there
last
could
night.
be context to it, Hayes, is it a team in the same division, like 3 teams are coming down the stretch and they're trying to get into the playoffs and the points are really important. Blah, blah, blah. Then you're talking about that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Right now, it might be a tad early.
It's early.
And last night's an example of that. You get a 4-minute power play with 3.5 in reg. You got to win that in reg to not give a point to Florida. Like the least power play last night was something else. Like it was terrible last night.
Honestly, like just do something different though. I don't get it. Throw Bertuzzi in front of the net and just do something different. I don't know. There's just some things they're so married to and they refuse to change. Sometimes it drives me nuts.
Yeah. Well, listen, they're back in action tomorrow night. Tomorrow's going to be a good one. It's going to be a great game with Seattle in town. Seattle's kind of taking over TSN tomorrow because you get the Kraken in town playing the Leafs, and you got the Seahawks are in Dallas playing the Cowboys on Thursday Night Football. So it's a lot of Seattle tomorrow night. And JD, of course, will be a big part of the panel tomorrow night. James Duthie's coming up. He will join us. We got a big announcement coming up that we are going to announce this hour as well. Jason Strudwick will join us at 5 p.m. on Max Domi chirping Sam Bennett last night. We'll get Struddy's take on that and more. And role play level of concern in about an hour. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, Overdrive continues. Brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Role play level of concern in about an hour. Jason Strudwick coming up, too. Struddy will join us. Coming off, the Oilers are red hot, so he's probably happy about that. They've won 3 in a row. Every once in a while, we bring Struddy on when it's positive news, right, out of Edmonton. And
Great job by Doogie with this lineup, Hazy.
Yeah, Doogie's bringing the heat today, right? Doogie's bringing the heat. He's got Struddy, he's got Steve Sands, and we got Duthie coming up because Duthie, I'm sure, is very, very excited for what is about to happen. Yes, we have a big announcement, and it sounds as if a number of people are kind of putting pieces together online because we were teasing that we have a big announcement today.
Well, the dodo heads in the morning pretty much gave it away.
That doesn't help when the guys in the morning are basically leaking the information. But tomorrow night, they basically...
Critter broke it?
Critter broke it. Yeah, it was Critter because Critter's going to be in here tomorrow, right? Critter will be in here on this show tomorrow because we're not going to be on Overdrive because we are heading to the panel tomorrow night. The 3 of us alongside James Duthie. Duthie has no idea what he's walking into.
Are you like Drager tomorrow?
I think I'm either a combination of Dreger, Pooley, Cheryl. I don't know what I am tomorrow.
Where are you sitting? Like where would
I want to be in the middle. I think I'll take the middle seat.
Dude,
you can move somewhere else, and I'll take the middle. I mean, I don't see why not.
I'll just tell you one thing right now. You're not sitting in my seat. I've sat in there for 11 years. You're not sitting there.
Okay, well, I'll find a spot. I'll sit. That's usually where Noodles sits. I'll sit beside Duthie.
I don't know. You should sit beside Duthie, and you could if he stumbles, you can just go, I'll
take
over.
I'm not having that. That's weird. Two hosts together.
I want to be right beside
You're on the end. You're in the Bob McKenzie chair.
Sure,
Bring
I don't
Duthie.
care. It doesn't matter to me. We can be anywhere. I would guess we won't have that say, right?
Duthie's on the line. Bring him in here and ask him.
All right, here's James Duthie, the host of the panel tomorrow night with 3 panelists right here on Overdrive. How excited are you, JD?
Hayes is going to be on a lawn chair just off to the
side. Solo box? I like that. Yeah, I'll take it.
We don't have room. Here's the way this thing went. Is last year, as you might remember, I went to Qatar to cover Canada at the World Cup, and I was missing a Leafs game in there somewhere. And they called me and said, one of the higher ups, and said, I we're thinking about having the Overdrive guys run the show while you're away. And my immediate reaction was, I spent 20 years building a foundation of credibility to the show, and you're going to toss it away in one night with these Gary clowns.
Right.
And then, of course, what happened was the opposite. You guys were superstars. And while I was in Qatar, I was getting flooded with messages asking me not to return. Which, actually has happened before, because every time Lindsay Hamilton hosts the show when I'm not there, I'm flooded with the same message.
Of course.
So I understand. So this year, I preempted and went to the higher-ups before the season and said, it was such a success. I want to be a team player. I want to have them back. But I also feel threatened, so I want to be a part of it. And since Hayes, let's face it, one of the bigger stories in television over the last 12 months has been Hayes transforming himself into one of the prime opinionists out there in television.
Yeah.
I mean, he's on SportsCenter every night with an opinion on literally everything.
And he's practicing in the TSN boardroom.
That's what he
or
does,
whatever
Jimmy.
workroom.
He
He's
walks
yelling at
around. He
people.
was arguing with Gino Reda and Glenn Schiller off air about something.
He was on CTV National last night doing something about the war.
Yes, I do have strong takes on that. Find that online. Omar and I are boys.
I think and you know what, I jest, but I think you're very good at that. And so I say, the stuff that you do as host, let's face it, I'm just a glorified traffic cop. I throw to break, I come out of break, I throw to O, I throw to Dregs to Pooley. It's chimp stuff. And I thought that Hayes deserved a bigger role, and so we need to put him into that analyst position with you.
What do you
you
think his role is as sitting in the
he is doing a 3-minute insider in the second block of the second intermission.
I am waiting for sources to get back to me. I don't know what I'm breaking, but
Dregs is going to drop in as well.
Yeah, Dregs will be there.
He's going to steal the show tomorrow because, you and I, we're going to do our thing and we'll be talking about plays, and he's going to go ballistic about something. Something's going to happen. There will be some weird play that will be like, you take it, Hayes, and he will turn it into an international incident, like you just did the shootout, whatever, double tap.
The double tap, which I think is goofy. Yeah, I think the regulation wins. We'll figure it out. I mean, I
think it'll happen in the pregame, Noodles. I don't even think it waits. I think he conjures it up tonight, and he comes in firing 30 seconds into the pregame. Hey, welcome to the show. The OverDrive guys are here. And Hayes is like, no more double tap.
Yeah, just cut you off immediately. That's the thing. It's going to be awkward for me. I really got to mind my P's and Q's because, I mean, you're running the show. It's your show.
Well, no, but it's going to be the easiest show I've ever done because
we'll have a blast.
I'm fully aware of the popularity of the OverDrive program, and so I'm just going to set you guys up and step. I might go have a smoke, and I don't even smoke.
No, we need this. This will be a blast. I think it's going to be amazing tomorrow night.
Last year with what we call the bumpers.
Yes,
when we go to break. And you say what's coming up next, and you just kept on talking right through the commercial.
He was talking while the guy was still shoving Tide into the dishwasher, the laundry machine.
That was noted. That was noted by the powers that be. So if nothing else, I will throw to commercial properly tomorrow and let you guys handle the rest.
Yeah, that one was tough, man. Billy was in my ear. He's like, you kind of need to go 5 seconds ago. I'm still teeing up the quiz or confirm or deny or whatever we were doing.
Did you guys do
No, we didn't do the quiz.
Have you done a quiz before, Hayes?
I have never done a quiz. I have never been a part of the quiz.
So you will be answering questions. I've worked at the network for 25 years. I've never got to answer a question on the quiz. Wow. And here you are sliding in for your first time as an analyst.
Right.
I've got a question. I've got a question then. How many times between the four of us have we received phone calls in the last 2 days from the quiz master? What's the over-under, 20?
Combined, it's 20 and a half, and I'd take the over.
Have you heard from him yet, Hayes?
Oh, I've talked to him many times. Yes, many times.
Does the audience know that, and I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but the Quizmaster used to run hockey at TSN, and then he sort of semi-retired, but he wanted to keep control of the quiz because he's a control freak. And now I think we've created more of a monster because all he does all week long is think about the quiz. Right. He writes 400 questions and then slowly whittles it down to 4. And then changes his mind at the last second, and that's why you guys get these phone calls. So I apologize.
It's going to be outstanding. Yeah. So we're tomorrow night, right? You got Seattle in town. You guys, it's great because you guys were doing the panel last night. That was a wild game. Even though it was a low-scoring game, it will not soon be forgotten because of the double tap, right? I think I didn't finish my thought on this earlier. I think reviewing a 4-minute high stick is so ridiculous, personally, but.
Why?
Because you're telling me if a guy high sticks somebody, breaks his jaw, but doesn't draw blood, you just continue with the play. But a high stick where you nick a guy and he's got blood, you review it because there's blood. It's goofy.
The draw blood rule, which I don't know how old that is in hockey, feels like forever, is kind of one of the silliest rules ever.
So stupid.
You could cause brain damage to someone but not draw blood. And nick a guy and draw blood, and one could be 2 minutes and one could be 4 minutes.
Exactly.
But I don't know what
blood.
else to do.
But it was
you guys may have talked about this already, but we're pretty sure they missed that call and somebody saw it on the jumbotron hadn't figured out a way to get that review going, because I don't think they saw that live at all.
No. And, the Leafs had another too many men on the ice last night, which that feels like a song for you come the trade deadline, doesn't it, JD?
Well, that one was actually, I think the too many men, the whole puck over glass thing, which was the first song we ever did, the year before puck over glass, there was a ton of too many men penalties in the playoffs, and I think that's when we had this tote board thing. This is even prior to the days of, I think, Owen Noodles on the panel, and we had a giant tote board, and we had like all sorts of stupid effects that would come up every time there was a too many men penalty, and then the next year it was puck over glass penalties, and we did the same thing, and then we did the stupid song, etc. So there's a long history of that with the panel. I think last night they kind of got robbed on that call. It didn't look that bad or egregious, but when you have 8 and lead the league, that is definitely a problem at the National Hockey League level.
Yeah, that seems like a reputation call last night, right? Like the Panthers are yelling, the refs are like, well, the Leafs are always getting too many men on the ice, so we'll call it. But it was a memorable game, even though low scoring.
You know what? They're not. Look, I think everybody listening that's a Leafs fan is not satisfied. This has not been a satisfying season. There's been great moments like the Matthews back-to-back hat tricks, and I think what happened in Sweden with Nylander, and basically Nylander most of the season. Last night was great to watch Joe Woll do that. It was a very cool ending how the fans left and came back, which I can't remember since maybe I was watching that Bills doc. The 30 for 30 doc about the Bills' 4 Super Bowl losses and the Frank Reich game, and how half the stadium had left in that game, and they were all running. They were driving back to the stadium to try to get back in after the 35-3. This wasn't. I don't think people had gotten very far in this case. They were only 50 yards out, but a long way of saying that the Leafs have been. They're always interesting. They're not satisfying, but they're interesting. I think that was the 8th one-goal game of November that they've played. And so you can't say you're not getting entertainment value from this team. It's just they leave you wanting a lot more.
Yeah, they do. And you're right about that content. And you had a great interview before the game with Matthew Tkachuk where he kind of indicated that down in Florida, not many people paying attention. Or not many people asking him about what's going to happen.
I'm kind of a little fatigued, guys, of that coming up, where they're like in a southern market, small market. They're like, yeah, we don't have to deal with the garbage that goes on in Toronto.
I think some of that's a crock, too, because most of them get us beamed into their dressing rooms and such, so they can watch us or the other guys or whatever. They know what's going on. But, that's the old Florida double-edged sword, right? I'm sure when you play in a Canadian market for a lot of years, it's nice to go down there for a while. But there's also you miss it. I can remember the first time we did a piece on Luongo, that goofy piece where Noodles hits him with the Zamboni. Noodles, when I came down, I think it was the first time I ever met you to do that story. And we came to the room that day, and I said to the PR guy, I said, we'll just wait till after like the scrums are over, and then we'll get Noodles and Luongo. And he said, there's no scrums. You're the only one here. We were the only media there on a practice day. Me doing some goofy feature. There was nobody else there. I mean, there would have been my one print guy standing in the corner.
George Richards was probably there. That's the only
And
guy.
I remember talking to a few guys there, and Noodles, you probably have opinions on this because you play both. But I think, guys, you might enjoy it for a while and then you miss it, right? You miss it being the most important thing in the city.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's neat. I've played in both sides of the border. I played in a Canadian city. Calgary's, would call it a little bit smaller. It's not as big as Vancouver and Toronto, but playing in St. Louis, playing in Florida, playing in Minnesota was the closest to a Canadian market I had experienced, especially coming back, right? They were pretty fired up. But there's times where you want to show up to the rink on a Monday, you don't play till Thursday. You welcome that there is no scribe there. You welcome that it's not a scrum with 50 people and they're filming practice, because your chances are you're hungover. You just want to get through practice and you want to enjoy yourself. You can worry about the game till Thursday. In Canadian market, you have to be on. It's been pointed out to me, and I've actually kind of witnessed it. In the Canadian market on a Monday and you don't play till Thursday, there's still storylines. There's still people that are very interested in you. So you take it. There's positive things that come out of it as well. Guys get deals. I saw Willie Nylander on some like a cell phone thing the other day.
TTC thing, yeah.
Yeah, these guys are getting deals. They're getting chip deals. They're getting all this stuff. Like, there is perks that come with this market as well.
And he ain't doing that commercial for free either.
No, of course not. He's making money. Listen, Matthew Tkachuk, you're right about the double-edged sword, James, because there's pros and cons to it all. But basically what you're suggesting, or what he's admitting, is that there's just not anyone paying attention down there. Mm-hmm. Like, that's basically what he's saying. And last year, it was a perfect year. Everything worked beautifully. The guy had a career year. He was up for the Hart. They went to a Cup final. Let's see in 3 or 4 years, because this is not like the NFL where you can have Mahomes in Kansas City. You can have Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. You can have Joe Burrow in Cincinnati and Allen in Buffalo, where small markets, it doesn't matter. They can be big markets because it's the National Football League. In the NHL, ideally, you have your biggest personalities in the biggest markets. And I'm not just saying Tkachuk in Canada, but if he was in New York, if he was in Philly, like, doesn't he personify the Philadelphia Flyers? Like, just if he was in Boston, if he was in Detroit, if he was in Minnesota.
Hey, O-Dog.
It's too bad.
O-Dog, is Hayes doing to Florida what he did to Minnesota yesterday? Yeah. And before that to someone else?
Yeah.
This guy just climbs on top of bathroom stalls and just puts different cities underneath him and just drops sky dumps every day.
No one cares about what people in Minnesota think. I've always liked Minnesota. I just mentioned them. It was a gratuitous throw-in.
You know what?
But
Florida,
I did mention them.
You're not wrong, and if they tumble back down, but they've done a really good job there, and that's a pretty good hockey team, and the management team is pretty good. And I
they're
think
a good
they might
team.
Be around for a few years.
They're a really good team. Paul Maurice is awesome. Like, to listen to him talk and his pregame, his postgame. Anyway, all right. JD.
Nobody cares about Tampa up here.
Okay, moving on. I got to save something
we
to take
need
for
one
tomorrow.
of those tomorrow night.
Yeah.
I desperately need somewhere in the show. No one gives a crap about Seattle.
I will find
you're
it.
not doing that.
Sure.
You're not doing
Drop
that
it into
tomorrow.
an intermission.
Yeah.
I'll find it.
It's
I'll
a
have
Hayes
something.
staple.
I'll have a rant. Matty Beniers, get him out of there. He's got to move on. Get him out of Seattle. Something will
Guys,
come.
I'm not letting that happen.
You know I'm one of the
tomorrow.
biggest fans of your shows. I can't wait for the crossover of the year, frankly.
Yes. It's going to be amazing. Thank you for having us. We really appreciate the invitation. Yes. And, you're used to it. Noodles, you've done a lot of panels, but I'll be a panelist tomorrow night.
You're the only guy that's going to have the old, what's this guy going to say tonight?
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait.
It's going to be a lot of fun. All right, JD, we'll catch you tomorrow night on the panel.
We'll see you on the panel, gentlemen. It's just I'm just giddy.
It's going to be awesome. Can't wait. There it is, James Duthie, the host of the panel. The Leafs on TSN tomorrow night against the Seattle Kraken with the OverDrive boys, riding shotgun with JD. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. Can't wait for it. It's going to be a blast tomorrow. So, all right, more on that as we move forward. Again, Leafs Seattle tomorrow night on TSN. We're all going to be on the panel. We got Jason Strudwick coming up in about 15 minutes. Struddy's take on the Leafs, the Oilers, Domi versus Bennett last night. We'll get into that and role play level of concern in about 45 minutes. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050N on TSN 4. All right, Jason Strudwick coming up in about 15 minutes. Role play level of concern still to come. Steve Sands from the Bahamas. Tiger was out there in Pro-Am today. He's playing this weekend. He's saying he's planning on playing every month or thinks he can play once a month. And I'm looking forward to seeing what he's got tomorrow, that's for sure. You see, speaking of older athletes who are always injured or injured recently, Aaron Rodgers was a participant in practice today.
Oh,
dude, we
the
talked
Jets.
about it yesterday. What is he thinking? Like, he can't climb them back into the playoffs. Like, shut it down and try to give it one more crack next year.
Yep. I read an article, I want to say it was Pro Football Talk reporting, that he basically is the only guy that's going to save jobs around there. And the argument is, they brought in Nathaniel Hackett. That's been a disaster. Like Nate Hackett as their offensive coordinator. And he was only there because he's Rodgers' guy.
Yeah, but look who's been throwing the football, man.
I know.
You could have the enemy in there, and it's going to be the same thing.
I think you're right. The quarterbacking has not been good enough. They got Tim Boyle out there throwing pick sixes to close, halves off. But they brought in Randall Cobb. They brought in Alan Lazard. And basically it's like maybe Rodgers feels he has to play, show a glimmer of hope so that everyone can come back next year and they can try to double down. I think that's stupid. I wouldn't suggest he does it. But now
but he's probably thinking, I only got a couple years left, Hayes. Why not play for something?
Well, and I said, a couple of weeks ago, the not conspiracy theorist in me, but like the pessimist in me kind of thinks he's like, if I can come back and play, then I can at least contemplate retiring. I can say I did it, right? I can say I made it back. And
I also think there's a part where he's like, this voodoo witchcraft that I do, it's smarter than anybody else's rehab. So I think there's that element to, what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
true.
The ego's
who the
in play
hell?
too.
Oh yeah,
Guy's
he's like
ego.
how I treat my body and what I do to it. The witchcraft that I pull out of my bottom drawer, it works better than any of you doctors. And like, I don't know. I think it's there.
I think it is too.
Yeah, I think you might be right. But man, if he blows his Achilles out again, that is going to set witchcraft back centuries.
Oh
Yeah.
Centuries if that doesn't work for him. But that'll be a wild story, man. I'll say that. Like if that guy storms out of the tunnel with the flag again, like the final week, like he did week 1, plays a game, plays a snap, it will be truly remarkable.
Yeah.
That he found a way to get back. But I don't see any sense in doing it. Their season's done. They're out. They're over. Hour 2 coming up. More on Rodgers, more on Tiger. Some links of Ohtani and Kikuchi and a potential Kikuchi push. We'll tell you more about that into the next hour as well. OverDrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.